Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Hot for Teacher. I'm Adam Coble. You are whoever you are, and we're going to talk about relationships. That's what Hot for Teacher is all about. So, I've been doing this a while. This is episode 21 now. We do it kind of sporadically because, honestly, it's a lot of work. It's a lot to, dive into the deep seas of relationships. Imagine if it's as challenging as I find it to talk about relationships, think about how difficult it is to be in them. Thankfully, as Michael Jackson said, you are not alone. Also, Billie Jean is not his lover. That's also important to remember. So we're going to talk about relationships today, and that means not just relationships with a capital R in the love and romance and babies and dating and getting married, but relationships in terms of your friends and your coworkers and your parents and your siblings and the people you play Dungeons and Dragons with. There are all kinds of relationships that make up the great, glorious, terrifying sphere of human interaction, and we're going to talk about those things. This is actually a fairly inwardly focused episode. There's a couple of questions here that I'm really excited to talk about. And honestly, I don't have all of the answers. I have 1d6 plus 3 of the answers. The idea here is not that I'm going to solve anybody's problems. I know, I'm sorry. If you thought that was the premise, I will send you a refund of your expectations in the mail. But the idea here is that we're going to get a conversation going that I, as a person of some determinate age and experience, has had some relationships in my life, and as somebody who cares about relationships a great deal, has thought about them and read books about relationship stuff, and just kind of it's something that matters to me. I have some opinions and some feelings, and so maybe I can share my experience with you, share my feelings and my thoughts with you, and maybe that will be of some service, which is really all I want to do. I'm here to serve you, chat. So Hot for Teacher is designed to be a write-in relationship advice show, which means I need your questions. So if you have questions, if you're sitting there and you're I could use some help with a relationship thing, you can submit them to me. I will serve you, but you have to submit to me. It's www.adam-cole.com/hot-for-teacher. There's a link. Just click it. Fill out the form. Submit it. You can be anonymous. You can make up a name. You can use your real name. It's fine. Whatever you feel comfortable with. And then whenever we do an episode, we answer 3 of those questions. So let's get to it. Let's do it. Let's do the thing. Let's answer 3 questions. Today's first question, I think this is going to be one. This is going to be one that everybody can relate to, I think. At some point or another in your life, you felt this way. So, passerby says, I have a lot of days where I'm simply not feeling well. Most of the time, I'm sad and exhausted, and I've realized recently that it's quite draining for the people who are around me. Since then, I've tried to be less down all the time, more positive, and just all around a better friend. It's actually doing me some good, even if it's a bit of forced happiness. Helps me get out of my own thoughts for a while. Only I feel even more exhausted and burned out when I get home, and I don't feel like there's anyone around for me to try to act like I'm doing better than I am. Yeah. I definitely think it's been easier and nicer on my loved ones. That's a nice feeling. But as soon as I'm alone, I feel a lot worse. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position where I can go seek professional help. Any advice on how to take care of yourself and your relationships when you're not in a good place mentally? So, first of all, passerby, yeah, yeah, that's real, and I think as you're seeing in chat, it's pretty damn relatable for a lot of people. I have definitely felt that way, and I think the sort of fundamental, if I can sort of restate the question and the situation, the fundamental situation here is, you feel tired and sad and bummed out, and you know that it would be helpful to go and get a professional to assist you medically or whatever, right? It'd be nice to have a counselor or a therapist or some pharmaceutical assistance, in the sense that that stuff would help you in and of yourself, but you can't. You're not in a position for whatever reason. It may not be available to you. It may be too expensive. It may just be something that you are not. I'm not going to judge. That's fine. You know me. I care deeply about people getting the help that they need. And I hope that that's something that can be possible for you in the future. But if right now it's not possible, that's okay. Do not feel guilty about that. It sounds like you got enough shit on your plate to begin with. So you feel down, you feel tired, you feel like a bummer, and you don't have the opportunity or ability to go and get a professional to help you. So in an effort to just like be a nicer, better person to be around, you put yourself into a positive state of mind, or try to at least pretend, when you're around the people that you care about, because you don't want to feel like you're dragging them down, because that's a bummer of a feeling too. You get a little bit of that like fake it till you make it energy, right? Where you're like, oh, I am actually kind of sad, but I'm pretending to be happy. It's the whole like making yourself smile thing, or if you're sad, like forcing yourself to laugh until you trick your body into releasing into, like, it's fucking dumb. Bodies are stupid, and you can trick them into making you feel a little bit better by like fake smiling and fake laughing and like, I feel great, everything's fine. And you can fake it, and that actually can help, which is asinine, but it's true. And you're feeling that, right? So you go out with your friends and you try to act like you feel better. Your brain is like, here, have a little dopamine, have a little serotonin, you're pretending, so we'll reward you. And you feel okay. Gets you out of your head. You're doing stuff with your friends, but that takes energy, right? So you have the energy of socializing, the great delicious stress cake of socializing with a nice layer of fake happy feelings on top. And then you have to, yeah, that's right. And then your brain comes to cash that loan, right? Your brain's like, time to pay up. And then you get home and you're alone and you don't feel like you have a support network. And then the bottom comes out and you crash. So what can be done? What do we do about this? So I want to try first and foremost to encourage you to free yourself from the sense that you are obligated to be a fun person to be around. And if you have any feelings or thoughts that your friends will stop liking you if you are depressed, discard those feelings as best you can. It is okay to go through hard times. It's okay to be sad. It is okay to feel the feelings that you're feeling, and it is reasonable that your friends will be supportive and want to like be around you, right? Like if you, and this goes for everybody, but if you are just a fun engine for your friends, if your friends only want you around because you're like fun, it's not healthy friendship. Like they're treating you like a Netflix TV show, right? Like you're an object if that's the only reason they like you. And I'm not saying that passerby's friends are like this, right? But yeah, I mean there may be some friends who are shitty jerks, and if so, free yourself from them, right? And you know, this goes for anybody who's in a relationship with people who are using you for fun. It's not healthy. So, I mean, I think the real thing is here is that this isn't about passerby and their friends, right? This isn't about that. This is about passerby's relationship with themselves. And that's the relationship that matters to me. Like, you can get new friends. There's billions of people on the planet, and lots of them will want to hang out with you. And that's another thing. But first, take care of yourself, right? And that, I think you're online for that. So I think, yeah, setting expectations with yourself that like it's okay to be sad and it's okay to have a hard time and that you can work on it is the first thing. Before you can know how to work on it, you got to know that it's okay to feel the things first. Don't avoid them, don't dodge them, just like it's okay. I think honestly, like talking yourself up, if you are capable of talking yourself up into a place where you can feel happy, turn that energy inward, right? So when you're sitting there and you're getting ready to go out with your friends and you're like, okay, all right, be normal, be normal. Everyone needs me to be normal and fun and cool. Everybody needs me to be a happy person and to be cheerful and fun to be around and to have good stories and like be entertaining and like, okay, gotta get myself worked up into friend mode. Now, all of that energy is going out. You are giving that energy away to your friends, but you can do that same stuff for yourself, right? You can sit down and be like, all right, me, let's think about some stuff that's cool and good, right? Like, it's so cheesy and it feels so dumb the first couple of times you do it, but it's totally okay to just kind of be like, you know what? It's fine. I'm sad and that's okay. I'm tired and that's okay. But there's other stuff about me that isn't sad and tired, right? Like, I am a person. I know at least this about Passerby, that you are a person who is not afraid to be vulnerable with strangers. And that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. You're doing a really cool thing, being able to like just talk about this stuff that's on your mind. It's okay to just be like, look, this is part of who I am, and there are good things about me. I am not just my sadness. I am not just my exhaustion. And Fradley in chat brought up that this applies to chronic illness. This applies to disability. This internalized feeling of like worthlessness or like I am entirely a bummer. It's a broad spectrum thing. Lots of people feel this. So like acknowledging that you are worth the energy for yourself, because let's be real, nobody else actually is, right? You can put in all the energy in the world into being a good friend, but if you let yourself fall by the wayside, that investment is going to come up short. Because like at the end of the line, your friends will eventually be dead. Hopefully a long time from now. But like you're going to be alone. And the only person you've really got is you. So you got to be really good to yourself, right? Take care of yourself, Passerby. You're awesome. And I think that you have some skills that will let you bolster yourself. I would just suggest that you turn them inward. Now, I mean, on a less like meta theoretical, like, oh, I'm going to sit around and think about why I'm great and reinforce myself. And I think that stuff is good. I think it can feel cheesy reinforcing the things that are good about yourself, but it's nice to treat yourself that way. But on a more practical level, it can be hard to know specific stuff that will make you feel better until you do it. So this means, for me at least, like trial and error. And you might do some stuff that you think might help that's actually going to not help. And you might do some stuff that you don't think will help, but you're going to do it anyway because maybe you've got a list. If you're like me, I like making lists. I like writing things down, like journaling. And I don't mean like Dear Diary. Today, chat was nice to me. What a lovely day. Like, I mean, this is about like taking note and being relatively analytical about your own feelings. So think about things that you can do that might be useful. Do a little self-care brainstorm, right? Maybe taking a bath, maybe going for a walk, maybe going to the animal shelter and playing with some puppies, maybe writing something, maybe playing a video game, maybe playing an RPG, maybe throwing a shot put. I don't know. What do people like doing? But try a bunch of different stuff and like write down how you felt about it, right? And I'm not saying like try it in like a deep, significant way. Like just give it a shot. Like just do a little bit of it, right? Go for a jog, right? Hang out with a friend, get some tea, whatever. And try to do something like this every time that you feel like sad or exhausted. And I know the exhaustion part's going to make you not want to do it. I will give you the allowance to put lie down on my bed and do nothing. But that's one in a long list of activities. Yeah, look. So I would suggest, and I would love it if like chat, or if you're watching this on YouTube, in the comments, just leave a comment about a thing that you like doing that makes you feel better. And then Passerby, you can read these things and be like, I don't know. I've never tried that. That seems fun. Or maybe it doesn't. But I'll try it and see how it feels. For me, when I feel sad and exhausted and I don't know what I want to do, Going for a walk is a big one, right? Listening to music, going for a walk, taking pictures, all of those things at once, right? Those things all feel really nice for me. Taking like a full half hour or so to turn my phone off and like get away from the internet and read, right? That's for me really nice. But I had to like try a bunch of stuff that didn't work, right? Like some people will suggest to you like exercise, and maybe that works for you. For me, exercise sucks. I hate it. It's a chore. But washing dishes, right? Doing the dishes, tidying my house. If I can get over that first 5 minutes of like, I hate it, I'm just going to live in filth forever. If I can get over that, once I start doing it, it's great. I feel so good. And then my house is clean. And my hands are clean because I washed the dish. Like it feels so good when I'm done. So give yourself room not to know, right? Like it's really hard to do the first 5 minutes of anything, especially if you suffer from depression. I have a hard time doing the first 5 minutes of things I love desperately, right? I can be so excited. Okay, you want to know a story? So this is how it works for me. And maybe this feels similar for you, and I'm only telling you this because I think solidarity is important, and maybe this will resonate with somebody. So there's this video game series I really like. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Persona. So recently, there's a new video game that came out in that series called Persona 5, and I was so freaking excited. I was so excited to play it. Like, the week leading up to it, I was just like, oh God, this is going to be so fun. And I'm going to stream it and everybody's going to love it. We're going to play all day and it's going to be great. And like I installed it and I got all my overlays ready. And like a half an hour before the stream went live, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I don't want to. I just want to like turn off my computer and throw my PlayStation in the garbage. And I just want to like lie down in my bed and not do anything. I don't want to do it. And then like the time came where I had to start the stream and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. And then I did it and I like hit broadcast and I started the timer and I started playing the music. And then I just like, it was like an exhalation of all of that stress. It was just like all of that weight of feeling exhausted and sad and not wanting to do shit. I was like, it just left. It flowed out of me. And that's how that cycle goes. And I don't always win that fight, right? I don't always like put my shoes on and leave the house. I don't always make that effort because it's hard. It's a lot of weight. But once you get doing it, it might help. And you can build a list, right? Like this is the fun thing is like, make a list of 10 things you want to try to see if they make you feel better, right? And then find a way to codify that list, right? Maybe it's smiley face stickers. Maybe it's a number. Maybe you rank these things 1 out of 10. It doesn't matter. Whatever works for you. But like try a bunch of shit and be ready for 90% of that shit to suck. But like if you find one thing in 10 that feels good and nice and helps alleviate the terrible pressure of being a human being, congratulations, you won. You won the Depression Olympics because you found a thing that helped, and that is huge. So when it comes down to it, like these kinds of coping mechanisms, these kinds of like adjustments that will help you feel like a more okay, more functional human being, those things take experience and time and practice. Right? And taking care of yourself is like it's a lifelong operation. You'll never stop doing that. And the things that you love will change. You will love new things. You will find the shiny new things become less useful. And that's okay. You're a person. That's how people work. We're going to talk about this more in the third question. But focus on you. Be a person who cares about themselves and is well-rounded and is willing to experiment with what makes you happy. And then your relationships will follow, right? The people that love you, they're going to continue to love you. They're going to appreciate that you're a work in progress because they are too, right? Everybody's working on being happy. Nobody is done except the dead. They're done. And you're still alive. And thank goodness for that. So keep doing it. Keep working on it. And I know it's hard and I know it's heavy and you don't always have to win. Sometimes you can fail and that's all right too. It's totally okay. And if you get a chance, get that help, right? Go see a counselor, go see a therapist, because they're just going to give you similar advice, but they're going to work with you like every week or every 2 weeks or whatever. They're going to work with you to like fine tune that shit. They're going to ask you really smart questions and they are going to help you do all of this stuff that I'm kind of like generally suggesting in a really specific and helpful way. And I know that right now you can't do that, but I hope that in the future you will be able to. I hope that that is something that becomes available to you because everybody should have that opportunity. Yeah. There you go. I hope that helped. And like, keep talking about it. Right? Be honest with your friends. Get support. Hang out. Just like be real with your feelings. I know that it's different being brave on the internet because you have this alias tied behind and we don't see you when you're at your lowest, right? Because you can hide that relatively easily, but use that same energy, right? Use that same bravery that you expressed today here. I mean, you expressed it months ago, but the same bravery you expressed here where you were like, hey, I need some help. Go tell your friends because they know you better than I do. And as much as I love you, they love you more. So keep doing what you're doing. So question number 2, I'm gonna give you a bit of a content warning for question number 2. We're going to talk about, in a general way, we're going to talk about abuse and like abusive relationships. We're not going to like specifically talk about like types of abuse. I just wanted to let you know because it's like a big thing. So question number 2 from Chloe. Recently, I spoke to a friend about an abusive past relationship of his. We argued over it because he doesn't consider his ex abusive, even though she gave him lasting injuries and deliberately sabotaged his other relationships. He said he allowed her to hurt him because he loved her. So it wasn't abuse because he chose not to leave until he was pressured by friends. He said that it was hypocritical of me to say this because my family have done things to me that could be considered emotional abuse. I said that didn't matter to me because I love my family. So I wanted to ask this difficult question. Is it right to excuse a person's abusive behavior towards you because you love them? Yeah. So this is great because, I mean, obviously the situation is not great, but Chloe is coming from a place that is pretty fucking self-aware, right? This I think Chloe acknowledges here that there's some, and I don't want to accuse you of being a hypocrite, Chloe, because I think hypocrisy is an innate element of human existence. I think everybody, to some degree or another, is kind of a hypocrite. I feel like do as I say, not as I do is a deeply fundamental aspect of being a person. Right? So I acknowledge that, and I acknowledge your acceptance or understanding of that being a thing. But that's, yeah, as Chad is pointing out, this is how abuse works. right? Now, nobody gets to define abuse really except the people who have experienced it, right? Like if I say to a person, that behavior felt abusive to me, they can't point at a textbook and say, no, see, it isn't, right? I think the term gets used a lot in a lot of different ways, and it can be very complex when that word comes up, to be like, this is abusive, or you are being abusive, or this relationship is abusive. And there's lots of different ways in which people can abuse each other. And it sucks, and it shouldn't happen, but it does. So I think the thing here is your question, is it right to excuse a person's abusive behavior towards you because you love them, implies that love and abuse are somehow connected in any meaningful way. I think they run often in parallel. I think you can love someone who is abusive to you, and I think you can think that you love someone that you are abusing. I think they exist in similar worlds, but I think love, because it's not like a universal meaningful thing, right? It's not, love is not math. Love is subjective. I think that love and abuse are interconnected, but that if somebody loves you, they shouldn't be doing abusive things. That is hypocritical of them to say I love you, but also like I'm trying to control you, or I'm like physically harmful towards you. I think the thing here is that you get to choose to a degree how much you are willing to put up with. I mean, we all do to some degree, but we don't really have the opportunity to see things clearly while we're in it. We may excuse someone for being abusive because we love them, but the fact of their abuse, I think, ought to deny them our love, right? Like, there's a lot of like very loaded terminology here, right? Abuse and love are both very like, they're very heavy, kind of blurry concepts that we tend to throw around when we talk about this stuff. So let's talk about these situations in particular, right? So your friend was in an abusive relationship, and it was traumatizing, as all abuse is. To some degree or another, all abuse is traumatizing, and trauma changes the way that you think about the world. It changes how you remember things. It changes how you see things going forward. It literally will fuck up the way your brain works psychologically. So it sounds to me like there's a factor of that here, right? This like, you had an argument because, and this often happens, being outside an abusive relationship, it can feel much easier to understand it. Being inside it, it's much easier to justify its continuance. But you saw this behavior going on, and after the fact, the two of you sat down and talked about it. And you said to your friend, that was an abusive relationship. Your friend said, no, I just let it happen. And then they said, well, your family is abusive to you. And you said, well, no, I love them. They're my family. So you're both basically in a very similar position right now, in that other people are perceiving a situation from the outside, and they're seeing it with a degree of distance. And that can both clarify and muddy their understanding of it. Ultimately, though, when it comes down to it, I think you don't have to worry about justifying it or being a hypocrite. I think it's fine and real and a part of every meaningful relationship that if abusive stuff comes up, you fucking talk about it. You call people out on that stuff. Like, if you love somebody, I believe that it is your responsibility to listen to them when they tell you you're being abusive. Like, if you go to someone and say, hey, that thing you did feels like abuse to me, and they tell you, no, it wasn't, or, oh, you're overreacting, or they get defensive, fuck that. Right? Like, what? if you love somebody, love is not an excuse for them to get away with whatever they want. You are still a person with like inviolable boundaries and a right to happiness. And like, if somebody is fucking with that, I don't care if they're your mom or your dad or your boyfriend or your wife or whatever, they do not have the right to fuck you up like that. So I guess when it comes down to it, no, it's not. It's not okay to excuse someone's abusive behavior because you love them. Full stop. No, I don't think so. Like, that's the thing. I think that you as a person can accept a degree of shittiness from your relationships that feels acceptable to you. And I'm not going to tell you what that looks like. Like, if you feel comfortable and okay being around people who are shitty to you because they're your family, fine. Right? What's in this case, what's good for the goose may not be good for the gander, right? It may be different for someone else. And then to add in the varying types of abuse, we tend to culturally and socially think of physical and sexual abuse as being more real than emotional abuse or psychological abuse, which that's a whole other thing. But every situation like this is different, right? Everybody who is dealing with these things deals with it differently. And like, when it really comes down to it, this conversation that you're having with your friend and that your friend is having with you, you're both kind of doing this to each other. You're sort of judging each other for your reactions to stuff that's happening to you. And I don't think that's okay. Like, I think you both maybe could benefit from a little bit of like understanding, a little bit of like solidarity in this case. Because you're not gonna get anywhere with this person, with him, and he's not gonna get anywhere with you. You're not gonna convince each other like, oh, wait a second, yes, this is definitely, like, you were right, that was an abusive relationship. You win the argument. Like, the thing is, you want to support people, and there is a whole school of thought on how to support people in abusive relationships, how to help them get out if that's a thing that is safe and possible for them, how to handle that. I think the way not to do it is to point and shout and be like, that was abusive. You're just not seeing it. I don't think that's going to help anybody for both of you. Like, I think if you're in this emotionally abusive relationship with your family, you don't need or deserve or ostensibly want anyone telling you constantly that it's abusive, right? That's sort of your call. It's complex though, isn't it? This idea that we should be allowed to decide how much we can take, but at the same time, abuse being one of these things that fucks up our ability to perceive what's going on with us. You know, your apparatus for detecting your own safety gets all fucked up when somebody is behaving this way towards you, and you can lose perspective even after the fact. So I think in this case, Chloe, you and your friend should probably find better ways to support each other emotionally, rather than getting in a fight about this or like arguing or pointing fingers or whatever. I think the jam here really needs to be like, and this is like group therapy 101, use I statements, express your feelings. Don't say you need to change, you need to do this, you have to do that. Say, I am worried about you, or when I see you not dealing with the trauma of your relationship, it makes me feel upset. Talk about like your feelings, because then you're not putting it on this person to do anything, right? I think that it's really important to be in a position, and this is true of every relationship ever. It's really important to be able to be in a position to just like express what you're feeling and thinking without the expectation of any kind of reciprocation or return. Like if I say to somebody, when you did this thing, I felt sad, right? Like when you didn't text me back, I felt sad. I'm not saying change the way that you act. I'm not saying text me more often. I'm just expressing my feelings. If you want to change your behavior, that's on you. You can do that. But know when you do this, this is what happens to my feelings. And so like you can express that. And in the same way, like your friend may say to you, when you put a spotlight on me and my past relationship and you judge whether or not it's abusive, I feel upset because I see you in an abusive situation and I'm worried for you. Right? Like you both obviously care about each other. I don't think that you're arguing or debating to like win here, Chloe. I think what you're trying to do is help each other. But it's hard. We get our wires crossed sometimes, right? Sometimes we fight when we mean to hug. Sometimes we try to hug, but we punch. And that's not, it's a thing that happens. Confrontation and defensiveness definitely crop up. And it sounds like maybe both of you have a little bit of that going on. So I'd like it. It would be really cool if you could turn that energy into care. You could turn that energy into support for each other without judgment, because it feels like there's a lot of judgment going around in both directions. And I think that will require time and energy and like calm, right? The ability to just say like, here's what I'm feeling. You can't agree or disagree because it's not about that. It's just about a feeling. Engage each other there. Try that. And as far as like handling people who are abusive towards you, a neutral outside party, such as an advocate or a therapist or a counselor or whatever you want to call this person, whatever their job, someone who can listen to you and be like, hey, I hear you. I'm not in this situation. And they're going to ask you questions and they're going to help you through it. And like, honestly, Chloe, I think that if you're in a position where you feel like you're excusing people's abusive behavior towards you, that means you're being abused. Whether you can take it or not, whether you're like capable of letting it go because you love them or not, you're excusing a thing, which means that thing is there. And when I hear you say that, it makes me worried for you. So it is my hope that you will get some help from someone who is, as Generic Nerd pointed out, you will get some help from someone more qualified than me. It sounds like you have friends that care about you, even if maybe they're not great at expressing it. But I think that it would be really good for you to see somebody. Because living with friends or family or whoever being abusive to you is like, it's just going to chew you up, and you deserve better than that. Yeah, that's a thing. It's hard. People are shitty to each other and they don't always mean it. And sometimes they don't even know they're doing it. And it's inescapable. It's as inescapable as hypocrisy in human relationships. We just throw punches by accident sometimes, and that's how that goes. So get some help. Talk to people. You don't have to handle it. Just because you love somebody doesn't mean they're allowed to abuse you. Got that? I'm talking to everybody. Love is not an excuse for abuse. Suffering is not romantic. Fuck all that shit. So Dax is asking the big question. This is a big one. I like this one. It's also like kind of super intense. Dax says, I'm curious about a person's relationship with themselves. Specifically, sense of self and how to center yourself and figure out who you are and how to act in accordance with who you are. XO, Dax. Yeah, right. Dear Adam, please solve existentialism. So I'm not I'm not going to be able to solve this problem for everyone, because there are people who have devoted their entire lives, their whole existence to solving this problem. There are people who, multiple peoples, there are schools of thought devoted to answering this question. And I am not a philosopher. I mean, not professionally, certainly. I am an amateur philosopher, but So I guess from my perspective, based on my lived experience, how to figure out who you are. You can't, and you won't. And the reason isn't because it's impossible by nature, right? It isn't because there's no point to it or trying, right? It isn't because you are some kind of magical enigma. It's not because the human soul is an inscrutable object that only a higher power can understand. It's none of that. It's because you can't step in the same stream twice. Right? Like you're aiming at a moving target, and you're not going to be able to hit that target because by the time you figure out where it is, it's gone somewhere else. I don't think in our quest to scroot the soul, I don't think that there's any point in trying to pin ourselves down to say I am this way forever. This is the eternal core of who I am. The only way to be one thing forever is to cut yourself off from everything, including yourself. Because like a quantum particle, even self-reflection changes us, especially self-reflection changes us. So I would suggest that you try to think about yourself not as a singular objective thing. You are not a statue of marble, right? You are not bronze. Well, bronze is bronze, but you're not. You're a person. And as a person, your personhood changes and shifts and moves. And I think it's cool to be comfortable with that, right? Be the water that flows in the stream, because if you try to be the rock, you'll just get worn down until you're nothing. So what do we do in the interim then? What do we do when we're trying to understand, even just like, who am I today? For me, a big and helpful factor has always been recognizing not who am I, it's what do I present to the world, right? Who do I show to the world around me? When I envision, if I were to like make a metaphor of my understanding of the self, I am an amorphous object surrounded by masks, outward facing masks, right? So you figure out the ways that you express who you are to the world and what masks you wear, and then you understand those, right? You can polish and furnish those in a way that feels comfortable to you. And I don't mean in the sense of like being fake. I don't mean like makeup personae. I just mean, like, understand that you're different in every situation that you're in. You are a flexible individual. You are going to be different when you're at home by yourself. You're going to be different with your closest friends. You're going to be different with the people that you love. You're going to be different with people you're trying to impress. You're going to be different at work. You're going to be different everywhere that you go. And that's just a natural fluidity of how people are, right? And so, like, I think that it's a fool's errand to pick one thing and try to be that all the time. You know? Like, I feel like it would be super weird if I were to be like, all right, this is my personality 100% of the time. I am this person always. I am always like this. And then try to stay exactly that way around everyone. I don't have the neutrality in me to do that. I am snarkier with some people. I'm gentler with some people. I'm more serious or sillier. And it's very freeing to recognize that that's allowed, that it's okay, that the one true version of you, the one true Dax, doesn't exist. In a way, this authenticity that you seek, this universal Daxness, it's a fool's errand, man. You're tilting at windmills here. So let go of the one true Dax and find the ways you express your Daxness to the people around you. That is a thing you can do. That is a cool and fun thing to do. To think about the ways in which you express yourself to the world. So, that gives you some freedom to adjust who you are. I think a lot of the time people have existential crises around, like, violating that acting in accordance with who you are. Sometimes you'll do a thing and be like, wow, that was really out of character. Like, why did I do that? That's okay. Don't look at it as a betrayal of your ultimate Daxedness. Look at it as a facet of who you are, because nothing that you do really is inauthentic. It's just unexpected or maybe undesirable. Maybe you don't want to be that way, right? But don't look at it as, oh God, who did that? That's someone else. Don't dissociate from your own actions and feelings. Understand why you feel that way, right? I think that as I get older, I'm experiencing this sort of divergence where, on the one hand, I'm becoming more and more interested and more invested in the things that I was already interested and invested in, right? The things that I love most now, I have loved for decades. I have loved since I was a kid, and I'm getting more and more invested and interested in those things. I care more and more every day about role-playing games and about relationships and about photography, and I'm becoming hyper-focused on that stuff, but I'm also allowing myself the freedom to not define my identity by the things that I like or the things that interest or I'm curious about, right? Like, don't box yourself in. Because if you think of yourself as, for example, someone who only listens to System of a Down and never wears hats and refuses to go to India, one day you will find yourself wearing a hat in India, listening to a band that is not System of a Down, and you will wonder, how did I get here? What person am I? I have betrayed who I am. I have become this not Dax. But in reality, all you're doing is changing what Dax is, what Dax is interested in, what Dax cares about. It's okay. It's okay to be different, right? It's okay to change yourself. And I think if we want to get if we want to get a little deeper into how this stuff happens, capitalism has a big effect on people. And I mean particularly through the things that we buy, the media we consume, right? The stuff that this axiom of this daxiom, if you will, this axiom of you are what you eat can be applied to media and objects, right? So You are what you consume is sort of the watchword of many people's lives. This idea that the things that you love, like the music you listen to, the TV shows you watch, the video games you play or don't play, the tabletop RPGs you enjoy, the streamers you watch, whatever, all of that stuff gets to decide, I guess, like a function of your identity. And so then you can be betrayed by those things, right? What do you do if you find out that your favorite actor in the whole world turns out to be a racist trash can? What do you do if your favorite band releases a bad album? Right? Like, we can get into this place where if we build our identity on external stuff, that stuff can let us down. And then we go into a crisis where we're like, oh God, like I loved the things that I loved. How could, if they're bad, I must also be bad. And then we turn that inward disappointment and fear into external anger and defensiveness. So then if somebody says, hey, that streamer you love said something problematic on the internet, you, in a way to defend your own identity, scream at them until they are silent and you can withdraw into your little identity shell that was built for you by other people. Now, I'm not saying don't like things, though that would be kind of on brand for me to just be like, never love anything. That's not true. I actually think you should desperately and powerfully and intensely love stuff because it's great. But understand why you love it, right? You don't love the music you love because it's music. You don't love the movies you love because you paid to go see them. You love them because they say something to you. They speak to you in a way. Something about them matters. And to make a role-playing game analogy, the player who always plays a cleric doesn't love clerics because of clerics, right? The players that always play elves don't love them because they're elves. They love something thematically about it. They love something that it allows them to express. So think about the things that you love. Think about what you're using to build up your identity. If you think of yourself as like a gamer or a weeb or whatever, think about what about that thing. What about that purchasable object or that buy-in? What about that do you like? Why do you identify with that? And you will find in there, you'll find higher level stuff. You'll find more meaningful stuff. So the idea of like centering yourself and figuring out who you are and chasing that moving target, it's less about making a specific aggressive decision and sticking to it, and more about knowing yourself on a broader, higher level, right? Like what is it about the things I love that I love? And then let yourself change. Give yourself some room to like not love that thing anymore or to love different things, because you're different now than you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, yesterday, right? So like, let yourself be that way. Just keep doing that. You're going to be different tomorrow. You're going to be different in 10 years. You're going to get to the end of your life and you're going to look back and you're going to say, you know what? I have been a multitude of people, but because I am a thoughtful, inward-looking individual, I can see the threads that run through all those people, right? I can see the web of my life laid out before me, and I can understand why those changes happened. And that's a cool feeling. That's a really cool feeling to understand yourself that way. And honestly, like Dax, I don't know how old you are or how much experience you've had in your life. You could be 10 for all I know. You'd be a very thoughtful 10-year-old, and I'm sorry about all the swearing. But with experience, and not just by default, right? This doesn't just happen because you get older, but with experience and intention, you're going to be able to understand your own admittedly like fluid momentum through your life. And that freedom that you can give yourself to move around like that and to change who you are, but still feeling like you're being true to whatever that path looks like, that's going to help you with a ton of stuff. It'll help you in your relationships, right? It'll help you interact with other people. It'll help you try new things. It'll help you express yourself. It'll help you with jobs, because if you are stolid and refuse to change or allow yourself to change, you're going to end up having a job and you're going to work there forever, even if you hate it, because it'll be part of who you are, right? It's going to help you with like sexuality and gender stuff, because I think a lot of people make an assumption pretty early on from an external perspective that they are a certain way because people told them they were that way. And they were like, well, I mean, that's how that works, so I'm going to be that way. But if you recognize there is a fluidity to your identity and that you are allowed to change, it can be very freeing. So I don't know. Don't go looking for the one true Dax. Instead, seek only to understand the great amorphous psychoblob that represents the many Dexes that you already have been and will continue to be. And then, I don't know, just like read a lot of philosophy, like just a lot, and then let everybody else tell you that it's fundamentally a hopeless thing to try to like be one thing. So yeah, there we go. We've been kind of all over the place, haven't we? Talked a little bit about abusive relationships. We talked a little bit about what it is to be a Dax. Hopefully we helped passerby understand their situation a little bit and be good to themselves. And I hope that today, even if I didn't answer your question specifically, because chances are very good you were not one of those three people, that maybe it got you thinking about some stuff, that it helped you get an understanding of what is possible for your brain, and like encourage you to talk about this stuff more. Talk to your friends. If something was interesting to you in today's episode, like bring it up with someone. Be like, hey, so I was watching Adam Koebel on Hot for Teacher, which you can submit your questions to by going to www.adam-koebel.com and clicking the Hot for Teacher link. And I was thinking about something Adam said. What do you think of this? So yeah, I don't know. Talk about it. Have conversations. Engage with your friends. Engage with strangers on the internet. Jump in the Discord and be like, hey, can we talk about today's episode of Hot for Teacher? Leave a comment in the YouTubes if you're watching this there. And that's it for us for today. This has been episode number 21 of Hot for Teacher. And as always, I'm so glad you came. We will see you next time for more. Bye, everybody.